Normally, Warlocks are known for their space magic, like the Well of Radiance, Nova Bombs, or firing electricity out their fingers, like Emperor Palpatine. They're not normally known for their melee abilities, of using their fists in a fight to punch enemies to death. Well, today, that is all going to change, as I put together this Warlock Arc 3.0 build with Winter's Guile. With the right perks, mods and weapons, we're going to be turning our Warlocks into a prize fighter in Destiny 2. Well, if you're new around here or find this useful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button down below for all the latest Destiny 2 content and turn on notifications by hitting that bell. Roughly 98% of viewers who watch This Week in Video Games are subscribed, so subscribe today and never miss an update. Well, without further delay, let's dive into this Arc 3.0 build, and first of all, let's have a look at the Arc setup. So for my super, I'm using Chaos Reach. My grenade, I'm using a skip grenade, although really, it is your choice. My melee ability is Chain Lightning. My class ability is a Healing Rift. For my aspects, I'm using Arc Soul, so cast your Rift to create an Arc Soul that fires at targets in front of you. Allies who pass through your Rift get an Arc Soul, and your Rift charges fast when allies are near, and while amplified, your Arc Souls are supercharged and gain an increased rate of fire. Then I'm using Electrostatic Mind. Defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an Arcanic Trace, and collecting Arcanic Trace makes you amplified. Well, next up, looking at the fragment, so Spark of Frequency. Melee hits greatly increase your reload speed for a short duration. Spark of Feedback. Taking melee damage briefly increase your outgoing melee damage. Spark of Recharge, so while critically wounded, your melee and grenade energy regenerate more quickly. And Spark of Resistance, so when surrounded by enemies, the player has increased damage resistance. Next up, looking at the exotic armor, so for this one, I'm using Winter's Guile. Winter's Guile are exotic Warlock gauntlets and come with the perk Warlord Sigil. So with Warlord Sigil, eliminating enemies with melee attacks increases your melee damage. Then you've got a mobility enhancement mod, and that increases mobility. Well, next up, let's have a look at the weapons. This one is a legendary kinetic shotgun with a lightweight frame, meaning it's got superb handling and move fast with the weapon equipped. So this one comes with 1-2 punch, that improves melee damage. The perk reads, hit an enemy with every pellet in the shot increases melee damage for a short duration. This one is going to complement the build very, very nicely, but if you don't have Reckless Endangerment, then another shotgun with 1-2 punch would be just great. But if you're planning on taking this build into endgame content, like Nightfalls for example, you might want to swap out this shotgun for a pulse rifle or something that can take on unstoppable champions. This season that is pulse rifles, but that may change in the future. Next up, in the energy slot, I'm using Shadow Price. This one is a legendary energy auto rifle. It has a precision frame, meaning the weapon's recoil pattern is much more predictably vertical, and I have a version with Swashbuckler, so the weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with a weapon. This is also good because it's an arc weapon, plus it can deal with anti-barrier champions. Well, if you don't have Shadow Price, then another energy weapon with Swashbuckler would be good. Bonus for it being able to take on champions, for example, a scout rifle, pulse rifle, bow, or a sniper this season. Finally, in the power slot, I'm using Plank Stride. This one is a legendary power machine gun with a rapid fire frame, meaning deeper ammo reserves and slightly faster reload when the magazine is empty. Comes with the origin trait Right Hook, where dealing melee damage gives the weapon increased target acquisition and range for a short period of time, and dealing melee damage again extends that effect. Again, I've got one with Swashbuckler here, where the weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with a weapon. Therefore, Swashbuckler and Right Hook are going to support this melee-focused build really, really nicely. You may notice I'm not using any exotic weapons in this build, but if you do want to use an exotic weapon, then you could probably swap out Thunderlord for Plank Stride in the power slot. That is a great power weapon, though I was thinking because it's a melee-focused build, I want to be using that origin trait Right Hook paired with Swashbuckler, but if you want to use an exotic weapon like Thunderlord, then please go ahead and do so. Finally then, looking at the mods, I'm using Melee Wellmaker, so powered melee combatant final blow spawn elemental wells matching your subclass energy type. Using Bountiful Well, so elemental well mods that cause you to spawn elemental wells now stack, spawning additional wells for each additional copy of the mod you have equipped. Then I've got Font of Might, so picking up an elemental well that matches your subclass energy type grants a temporary bonus to weapon damage. Then I've got Anti-Barrier Auto Rifle, Overload Machine Gun, And also, this is an optional one for Unstoppable Pulse Rifle. So I am focusing on the auto rifle and the machine gun mods here, as I'm going to take those into endgame content. But if you want to use that pulse rifle, do remember to put on the Unstoppable Champion mod. Okay, let's have a look at the gameplay loop. So this build is all about powering up the melee damage, so you can get up close and personal with enemies in Destiny 2 as a Warlock. So this build revolves around Winter's Guile, and that is the perk Warlord's Sigil. So eliminating enemies with a melee attack increases your melee damage. I'm also going to be using a combination of perks to improve the melee damage even further. So these perks are optional to the build, but if you want to take this into Nightfalls or raids, I would focus on weapons that can take out champions. However, the option is here if you want to use these perks. So first, Swashbuckler is where the weapon gains increased damage from melee kills and kills with a weapon. I'm using this on my energy and power arc weapons. Also, in my kinetic slot, I'm using a shotgun with 1-2 punch. This is where hitting an enemy with every pellet in a shot increases the melee damage for a short duration. These perks combined with Warlord's Sigil is really going to make your Warlock very, very effective in attacking at close range with their fists and punching most enemies to death. Well, then I'm using some of the arc benefits on the Warlock build. Spark of Frequency is where the melee hits greatly increase your reload speed for a short duration. Given we're going to be punching enemies a lot, it's going to allow us to be ready with our weapons in case our very overpowered melee shots don't take out the enemies with one punch. Although I am pretty confident that they will. Spark of Recharge is they're going to help us recharge melee energy nice and quickly, allowing for more charged melee attacks. This is further supported by Electrostatic Mind, where defeating targets with arc abilities or defeating jolted or blinded targets creates an Ionic Trace. And collecting an Ionic Trace makes you amplified. Finally, using an Arc Soul, and this thing is going to support us in a very tight spot. Finally, I'm using Elemental Well mods to power up my damage output through Font of Might. This is going to give us a 20% increase to damage output. I'm using Melee Well Maker, given I'm running around and punching things anyway. Combined with Bountiful Wells, then I'm going to get 2 to 3 wells each time I punch an enemy, meaning an almost constant 20% buff to all damage output. When combined with the perks from exotic armor and weapons, it's going to really, really overcharge my Warlock, making him very, very difficult indeed to stop. Well, let me know in the comments what you think of the build, and let me know if you've got any improvements. Well, that is it for this guide for this Warlock Arc 3.0 build with Winter's Guile in Destiny 2. And as always, thank you so much for watching or listening. For more Destiny 2 content like this, hit that subscribe button down below and subscribe to This Week in Video Games. Or you can check me out on Twitter at TWIVG Podcast. If you enjoyed this video, found it useful, liking and sharing the video would really help me out. Otherwise, check out the other videos on the channel. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon.